When people first discover the idea that reality shapes itself around who they are, they often make the same mistake. They begin with a powerful declaration, an identity shift, a bold statement of who they are and what they've chosen to embody. And for a moment, they feel the surge of that truth. They feel the freedom of declaring, "This is who I am. This is what I have become." But then something happens. The mind gets restless. It wants to know when. It wants to know how. It wants to pick apart the unfolding and check every corner of life to see if reality has gotten the message. And before long, instead of walking in the ease of the new identity, people start micromanaging their own reality. They peek around the edges, tugging at the corners of the curtain, demanding progress reports from the universe. The problem is this: the very act of micromanaging sends the message that you don't actually trust the identity you've chosen. If you declare that you are abundant, but then constantly look at your bank account in frustration, trying to manipulate the exact path money should take to reach you, you are telling reality that you don't believe it yet. You're acting like someone outside the flow instead of someone standing fully in the truth. Here's the paradox. When you stop micromanaging, everything begins to align faster. Reality doesn't need your step-by-step instructions. Reality only mirrors who you are being. Once the seed is planted, the soil knows what to do. You don't dig up the seed every day to see if it's sprouting yet. You water it, give it light, and trust the process. If you dug it up every morning, you'd kill it before it had a chance to grow. The same is true with identity. Once you've declared who you are, stop trying to force the details of how it will show up. That's the mind's way of clinging to control. But the mind isn't the architect here. Your being is, your identity is. Think about it like this. If you decided you were a writer, you wouldn't sit around every day demanding to know exactly how each book will be received, what publisher will print it, how readers will find it, or what reviews will say. You would simply live as a writer. You would write. You would embody that truth, and reality would shape itself accordingly. This doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing, but it does mean you stop obsessing over the how. Your job is not to control reality. Your job is to decide who you are. The mirror will do the rest. Here's a simple analogy. When you stand in front of a mirror and smile, the reflection doesn't need coaching. You don't need to say, "Okay, reflection, make sure the teeth line up. Make sure the eyes crinkle just the right way. Make sure the corners of my lips move upward by exactly 1 inch." You just smile, and the reflection instantly follows. That's how reality works. The mistake comes when people try to coach the mirror. They scowl at their reflection and say, "Why aren't you smiling yet? Why don't you look happier? Why aren't you showing me the abundance, the relationship, the career, the health that I already declared?" They forget that the mirror doesn't lead. It only reflects. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like resting in certainty. It looks like choosing the identity of wealth or love or peace, and then walking through your life as though it's already true, because it is. Reality doesn't make it true. You do. Reality only echoes it back. When you micromanage, you step out of that certainty. You step back into the old identity, the one that says, "I'm not sure. I need to check. I need to push things around." And the mirror, faithfully obedient, reflects that back to you. The irony is, you're already living this principle, even if you don't realize it. When you wake up in the morning and decide you're tired, reality shapes itself to confirm that. Your body feels heavier. The day feels harder. The world mirrors what you've chosen to be in that moment. But notice, when you declare you're energized, the opposite happens. Identity is always the root. Reality is always the echo. That's why micromanaging doesn't just slow things down. It contradicts the whole principle. It's like planting one kind of seed and then trying to force it to grow into something else. It can't. The seed determines the tree. Your identity determines your reality. So if you've chosen, stop digging. Stop worrying. Stop pulling at the petals before the flower blooms. If you've declared yourself whole, walk as whole. If you've declared yourself wealthy, walk as wealthy. If you've declared yourself loved, walk as loved. That is enough. Reality will handle the choreography. This is why the greatest spiritual teachers always taught surrender. Not surrender as in giving up, but surrender as in releasing control of the process. The process is bigger than you. It knows more than you. It sees more than you. You can't possibly manage every moving part of the cosmos, but you don't have to, because when you align your being, the cosmos arranges itself around you. Think about all the times in your life when something wonderful happened in a way you never could have planned. You met someone by chance, and that connection changed everything. You stumbled onto an opportunity you didn't even know existed. A door opened that you didn't even knock on. That's how reality works when you stop interfering. It unfolds in ways that are far beyond your imagination. If you had tried to script every detail, you would have limited it. You would have insisted on a small doorway when the universe was preparing to open a wide gate. Micromanaging isn't just unnecessary, it's counterproductive. It shrinks the field of possibility. The truth is, reality is more intelligent than your doubts. It doesn't need your anxious management, it needs your certainty. The seed is already planted, the smile is already in motion. The identity has already been declared. Now the only thing left is to live as if it's already true. The temptation to micromanage comes from fear. Fear that maybe the new identity won't hold. Fear that maybe the universe didn't hear you. Fear that maybe you'll be disappointed again. And fear always pulls you back into the old patterns. But here's the truth. Fear is nothing more than a shadow. It has no substance unless you feed it. The moment you give in to micromanagement, you give that shadow weight. You turn it into something that dictates your choices. And then, of course, reality mirrors that shadow back. That's why the practice isn't about trying harder. It's about resting deeper. It's about trusting that once you have declared, once you have embodied, it's done. You don't have to beg reality to follow. Reality has no choice. It must mirror your being. Let's break it down even simpler. Imagine you put on a red shirt. Do you worry that your reflection will suddenly appear in blue? Do you need to check the mirror every few minutes to make sure it's still red? Of course not. You just live in the shirt, knowing that the reflection has no option but to match. That's how identity works. When you say, "I am wealthy," you have put on the identity of wealth. The reflection cannot choose anything else. But if you keep tugging at the shirt, swapping it out, and questioning whether it's the right color, the reflection gets confused. Not because it has power, but because you're sending mixed signals. You haven't settled into the being. This is why you must become comfortable with uncertainty. Not the uncertainty of who you are. That must be solid, but the uncertainty of how reality will unfold around that being. That's the part you must release. The details are not your domain. The details belong to the reflection. When you cling to the how, you are essentially saying, "I don't trust the mirror. I need to make sure it knows what to do." But the mirror has never failed you. It has never once reflected something you didn't put in front of it. The moment you choose being, the mirror has already agreed. Think of it like navigation. You set the destination, but you don't control every turn, every street, every traffic light. The system routes you. Sometimes it takes you on the highway. Sometimes it takes you through side roads. But the destination doesn't change. The only way you fail to arrive is if you stop driving. The same is true with identity. Once you declare, the route is already drawn. Life will adjust the path, circumstances will shift, people will appear, doors will close and others will open. But the destination, the reality that matches your being, cannot vanish. It has already been called into form. The irony is, the more you try to micromanage, the longer the journey feels. You take detours, circling back, because you second-guess the route. But when you trust the process, when you simply drive with certainty, the path reveals itself smoothly. So the practice becomes this: decide, declare, and then release. Not release as in forget, but release as in rest. You already are the person you've chosen. Reality will catch up because it has to. That's the law. This is why ancient wisdom always pointed to faith. Faith isn't blind belief in something external. Faith is the knowing that your inner being is truth and that reality has no choice but to echo it. Faith is the refusal to micromanage. Faith is the quiet strength that says, "It is done. I am." Now let's address something practical. People often ask, but what if nothing seems to change? What if I declare abundance, love, health, and I don't see it right away? The answer is simple: stop looking for it. The act of looking for it is the very thing holding it back. Because when you look for it, you are affirming its absence. You're saying, "It's not here yet." And the mirror, faithful as ever, reflects that absence. Instead, walk as if it's already here. Not pretending, not forcing, simply being. If you declare abundance, how would you carry yourself today? How would you speak? How would you walk into a room? How would you make decisions? Start living that way and watch how reality bends to match. This is why identity work is not about affirmations stacked on top of doubt. It's about replacing doubt with certainty. A single declaration, lived fully, has more power than 1,000 micromanaged affirmations. You don't need to beg reality. You don't need to instruct it step by step. You only need to embody. Think about water flowing down a mountain. It doesn't micromanage its path. It doesn't stop to argue with rocks or stress over the twists in the terrain. It simply flows, and in time, it carves valleys, fills rivers, creates oceans. That's what happens when you release the how. Life flows around your being, shaping itself to what you are. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop micromanaging, you actually begin to notice the magic of the unfolding. You start seeing how perfectly timed events show up. You realize how someone you met years ago suddenly becomes the connection you need. You see how a challenge that once frustrated you was actually setting the stage for what you declared. The universe doesn't make mistakes, it only echoes. And when you stop interfering, when you stop micromanaging, you let that echo play out in the grandest way possible. So, here's the invitation. Make your declaration, state your identity, and then stop trying to control the mirror. Stop digging up the seed. Stop tugging on the flower. Trust the process. Walk as if it is already true, because it is. Reality is not your opponent. It's your reflection. It's not withholding anything from you. It's simply waiting for you to stop doubting, stop micromanaging, and start being. So don't waste your energy trying to choreograph the details. Use that energy to live the truth of your new identity. Rest in it, walk in it, speak in it, breathe in it, and reality will follow. It always does. That's the power of letting go. That's the power of not micromanaging your reality. And once you learn to trust it, you'll never go back to the exhausting cycle of trying to control what was never yours to control. Because the truth is simple. Once you have declared who you are, reality has already agreed.